I'm 18 years old. So I'm an adult now. I'm now an adult, but my actual journey with this didn't really start until I was like late 16. The most important thing that you can really take from that is that the confidence didn't come first, but it's the action that came first. You don't wait until you feel ready to take action, right? You build the confidence because you took action, right? And most importantly, removing that sting of rejection. I did it not once, not twice, but I did that exercise 3 different points.
This episode is sponsored by AI Your Superpower. Want to get seen, chosen, and recommended by AI? Go to aeo.iiyoursuperpower.com and download your free AI visibility playbook to stand out and grow with clarity.
Hello, and welcome back to Happiness by Habit. This is such a perfect guest for Happiness by Habit today, especially because Saahil brings such a refreshing perspective on leadership, discipline, entrepreneurship, and building confidence young. He is really somebody who I know for I guess about a year now. I've seen him grow and I've seen him do amazing things. He is part of the family of leaders of the Baxi family, and I know very well his parents and his sister, who are really, really well situated into the TEDx world and leadership and podcasting and all that fun stuff. So I am very excited to bring to you today Saahil Baxi. Welcome to the show, Saahil.
Thank you so much, Silvana. Really, really appreciate that beautiful introduction. Really great to see you and really great to be here today. I'm really, really excited for our conversation and hopefully I'll be able to provide some insights.
Absolutely. Well, you are the host of the Future Millionaires podcast, which has been hitting really cool numbers. Let me tell you, I'm impressed and congratulations. Which is a podcast that helps teenagers develop the mindset, habits, and skills to create financial freedom and become future leaders, which is what you are all about. I absolutely love this mission, Saahil. This is really, really cool because when you start young, typically young people are just taught to memorize, to learn things in a certain way, but know how to think, how to lead or communicate or create opportunities for themselves. So let's talk about the Future Millionaires podcast, Saahil. What is the idea behind this amazing podcast and what is your goal with it?
Absolutely, Silvana. Great question. A little bit of background for Future Millionaires. It started all the way back in when I was 17, September 2025. And so really, it wasn't wasn't a lot of expectations around the podcast. I hadn't had any experience prior to starting that. And it was completely new and fresh for me. But it was mainly an idea that came from my dad because we saw at where we are in today's world that podcasts have become a huge hit. And so my dad told me to take advantage of it, but in a sort of unique and different angle. As someone who is young, I was 17 at the time, so I could tap into the hearts of young aspiring entrepreneurs, young teenagers, young adults even. And so that was really where I was going with it. And then it started growing really, really well because at first I had no, of course, expectations for this and I had no real mission settled yet. I had no real mission formed. I was kind of just going through it and it was definitely a very, very scary journey. I'm sure you could probably pick that tone up from the first few episodes that I've done on the podcast. But as I went through it, as I kept continuing with the podcast and getting different sort of guests like Silvana I've had on over here,
Mm-hmm.
then I really started to, form a mission that was, something that was solid and something that people could actually, speak to. And of course, my mission, and I'm sure you know this, Silvana, I want to, help these teenagers, help these young adults with the guests that I have on the podcast. We are together joined to provide those life lessons, those mindset shifts, and those valuable habits so that young people can really extract that sort of information, really get that inspiration so that they can pursue their own version of success. And of course, my mission, personal mission with that, Silvana, as you know, is to, help those teenagers, those 1,000 teenagers really start that saving and investing, because as young people, saving and investing is such a strong tool that you can take advantage of, at age 14, 15, or 16. Time is something that you can never get back financially. So that's when it comes down to starting young and building that foundation early.
Wow, so many things I want to talk about following up your comments. But let's start with the importance of podcasting. I mean, you come in your family. Let's give a little bit of a background to the audience. You were homeschooled. You and Macy, your sister, were homeschooled. You come from a family of that are the TEDx organizers of the organizers of TEDx Lake Mary. And then you did a TEDx, Macy did a TEDx, Minesh, your dad did a TEDx, your mom was the organizer of the licensee holder of the TEDx Lake Mary. But then also, we talk about the importance of communication and of giving the message. And so, therefore, not only TEDx was very important in your family, but also podcasting. Podcasting, you have this amazing podcast. Then your sister has a podcast, and your dad does. And just to give you credit for something that actually was born in one of the events that your family put together in Orlando, the joint venture event for speakers a few months ago. That's where my daughter Sabrina's podcast came about, Brave Talks with Sabrina. So podcasting is being a really important part of your life and of your mission. And I really appreciate it because in every episode you do have a really interesting message and that is aligned with your mission. So let's talk about where you are with the podcast because your podcast has amazing results right now. You have interview. I don't remember what was the goal, but it was like a podcast a day or something like that, right? It's something really really crazy. Tell us more about that story, please, Sahil.
Of course, Silvana. So I had a lot of goals or a lot of things I needed to make sure I was doing to ensure that I would grow my podcast in a direction that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those was doing 3 to 4 podcast interviews a day.
Wow.
And, I don't know. To me, it sounded like, I don't know how how it might
Wild.
sound to people. If it is wild, it's wild. I can't tell you what you think is wild and what isn't. But to me personally, it wasn't like it was really, something so, out of this world that, it was impossible. But I think, what made it so easy to, get those 3 to 4 podcast interviews a day is of course number one is asking for referrals and people that I've already interviewed on my podcast for people that they know that they think, hey, I think you'd be a great fit to be on Saahil's Future Millionaires podcast. So it was tapping into my own network and being introduced to the people that I've already interviewed so that I can meet the people that they know. And then second of all is because I'm also young, right? People are going to be more inclined to want to help out and support people who are young and starting early. And so that's another big advantage with starting early is that a lot of people will see you actively taking that route and really taking your opportunity to start early and really build that foundation, and people will recognize that and they'll respect you for that you are
Mm.
taking initiative early in that you were, trying to put together great things for the world and you're really trying to make an impact. Through this podcast, maybe this will, help people who are listening to this, maybe this will inspire them to, start a podcast as well. But I'm sure you can agree, Silvana, that starting a podcast opens up, doors to, the people that you meet and the connections that you make. I've interviewed over 150, maybe close to 160 guests on my podcast. I have
Wow.
interviewed people from like, they're millionaires, they're worth over 25 million, maybe they're worth over 50 million. I've interviewed over he's a guy, his name is Zoltan, and he's the owner of one of the best bars in the world, so really podcast, it really opens up those doors and those opportunities that you'll be able to meet such amazing and successful and really grounded people as well. And since I'm young as well, another advantage. I know there's a lot of advantage that comes when you're starting young, but it's of course that I'm also, I'm not someone who knows everything. I'm not a master at everything that I do in my life, right? I'm still growing, I'm still learning, I'm still young. So there's a lot of things that I can still learn from. And so with the podcast, I don't see myself as someone who is, knows better or who knows it all. I'm actively, learning in the process, right? The audience is learning, and in the process, I am as well. I picked up on a lot of great insights and a lot of great tips that have, really brought a lot of value to me, because before I didn't know any of this, right? But because of this podcast, it really helps me learn a lot more. So there's so many advantages that comes with, putting together a podcast. There's so many advantages. You can't say no to any of that.
My God, I would definitely agree with that, Sahil. For me also, it has been such a blessing because I get to know deeper so many amazing guests that I had in my podcast. But you're being super humble, let me tell you. Let's talk about numbers. Show me the money. I want to talk about how many episodes you have done already in such a short period of time. And I would like for you to mention how many downloads you're getting, because I know you're getting a lot of downloads for your podcast. So share those numbers with us, please.
Of course, Silvana, of course. With a podcast, it's not just the people that you meet, but it's also seeing your podcast perform well as well, and seeing those big numbers and results. So as of right now, I just pulled it up, honestly.
Oh, really?
But I have several episodes, cross over 1,000 downloads individually.
Nice.
Over all-time downloads, I have 70, or well, actually, it's 69,999. So it's just one download short of 70,000 right now. So I'm just right there, just short of 70,000. Just one more download and I'll reach that number.
Nice. You can make a difference, listener.
Absolutely. Please, let's get it
Check
to
it
that
out.
70,000. Let's get it to that 70,000.
Yes, for sure. And that's the podcast, how they can find the podcast. They can find it anywhere they consume podcasts, like Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all over the place, right?
Of course, all those platforms that especially Apple Podcasts. And give it a listen. Maybe leave a review. I'd love to see some.
Absolutely. Show us the love. Amazing people. Absolutely. So, yeah. And then I would love to turn it a little bit into and talk a little bit about your TEDx talk, because you also did a TEDx talk and it was so powerful. I really, really enjoy it. The title is The Confidence Secret They Don't Tell Teenagers. Tell us a little bit more about. Before you do that, I would love for you to share with us, how old are you? This is a question we don't normally ask, but because you're so young, we can ask you, and we would love to know, so we can put it in perspective with all the things you're accomplishing.
Absolutely, Silvana, and great question as well. So right now, I'm 18 years old. So I'm an adult now. I'm now an adult, but my actual journey with this didn't really start until I was like late 16. And a little background behind my TEDx talk, right? It's the confidence secret that they don't tell teenagers. And basically what that talk was about was how when I was, 16 years old, right? I was going out actively because my dad taught me something really, really important, right? Because around the time, I wasn't very good at talking to people. I was horrible at communication and, being able to hold conversations with people. Silvana, if I was 16 years old right now and I was on this podcast, actually, you wouldn't even see me on this podcast. I wouldn't even I wouldn't even be here, honestly. But I wouldn't be able to, have this conversation with you at all, Silvana, right? But that's just because there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of fear of especially rejection, which is what my talk was mainly surrounding, was removing that fear of rejection. At 16, every single day, I was over a course of a couple months, I would go out and force myself to talk to business owners. I would talk to local business owners, and what I would do is just at the time, AI was pretty big, so I'd do something like, "Hey, I'm starting an AI business. If you want to, do you want a free 30-minute consultation just to see if this works for you?" So it was something like that I started off with. But
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty simple, nothing too hard. But it was, of course, it was terrifying, honestly. It goes from starting your words, not even remembering what to say next. All of those things that you can think of happened to me throughout my process and throughout my journey of that. But, the most important thing that you can really take from that is that the confidence didn't come first, but it's the action that came first. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the
Mm,
saying that, you don't wait until you feel ready to take action, right? You build the confidence because you took action, right? And so through those months, and I actually did not do that sort of exercise of trying to get better at conversation and get comfortable talking to strangers, and most importantly, removing that sting of rejection. I did it not once, not twice, but I did that exercise 3 different points. So I did it when I was 16. I did it when I was 17 with something different. I think it was websites or something like that. And then I did it when I was 18, or well, at the age I am right now. And so that was, for my podcast. And so, it's you think of it as a muscle, right? You think of it as a muscle that you work out, and something that muscle that you maintain. I'm a runner. I go to the gym. I love to work out, right? I'm sure we understand that if you aren't, you know, being consistent with that muscle, you'll eventually lose that muscle. You'll eventually lose that fitness, and then you have to start back, even even at like square one. You have to put in a lot more effort now to get back to the progress that you were before. And so that was what my TEDx talk was around. And that's the background in the journey of what I did to, actually be able to have the, ability to actually talk about that experience. Because I knew it was, being a TEDx speaker wasn't exactly something on my mind, but it was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down. And so having that experience under my belt, I think it was really, really important that I had that experience first before I actually, took on that TEDx talk. So through those experiences, I'm really, really glad that I am here where I am today. Because without that, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be
oh
here
my
talking
God.
to you.
Yes. And I love that because you, Sahil, you're doing things that many people like fear and are so don't even dream about doing yet. And you are doing it at such an early age, which definitely brings up the value of what you are doing. For anybody listening, I definitely encourage you check out his TEDx talk. It's really, really a game changer. And I love the way you talk about rejection and how that became your fuel kind of so once you learn how to overcome that, then basically you're unstoppable, I would say. Let's talk about other things. Let's talk about your family. You come from an amazing family, the Baxi family, that do like your dad has a podcast. He has a group called Speakers Supporting Speakers, which also, by the way, anybody who might be interested about the speaking engagements and making a career in that, register and check it out because it's really valuable. Your sister, Macy, has her podcast as well, and she's a TEDx coach. She is a speaker and a very good one also, and you are doing amazing things. So I would say, what would you advise the young people today, or not even the young people, anybody today that has a message, because we all have something to say. What would you advise them so that they can be brave enough to go ahead and deliver their message and do the things that they need to do in order to put the word out there of what they are doing?
Absolutely, Silvana. So I think, it really, really, it might sound cliche, but it sounds as simple as that. But I can guarantee you it sounds simple, but, the process is truly, truly such a difficult endeavor to take on, right? It's definitely easier said than done, but a lot of it comes down to being willing to actually do it, right? And I think
The
that
action
goes.
part is the
Exactly.
difference, right?
Exactly, Silvana. You hit it on the head right there, right? It's being willing to actually go out there, right? Because a lot of people can say, oh, you need to do this, you need to practice in front of people, right? You need to, really build that confidence, or you need to put together a strong message and get clarity on that. All of those, of course, those all make sense, and that's what you're supposed to do, right? But if you put all these things together, right? If you clarify your message, you really build something that is so amazing that you're like, I need people to hear this, but then you don't do it, then it's just sitting on your notes, it's just sitting on your document because you didn't actually do it. And this sort of just reinforces what I talked about earlier when I was, starting my rejection-proof journey, is that confidence, it doesn't come first. It doesn't come initially. The confidence builds because you take action, right? You
Mm.
can still feel nervous sometimes. It's a really natural, it's human nature. Everyone's going to feel nervous with something, right? But the thing here is, like, you recognize that you're nervous, right? But you still do it anyway. Because one of the greatest things that, really helped me push past that fear and that anxiety when it
Mhm.
came to going out and talking to people was that, it's not as bad as you really think it is. There's one thing that I recognize that changes or sort of shift in my body, my mentality, right? There's a sort of shift that happens, right? Going out to that person, it's a new sort of anxiety every time that I have to do it, right? It's not like it goes away forever. But,
Mhm.
when it gets to that point where, okay, now it's time, I have to go out and talk to these business owners, and it gets to that first person, right? That first person is going to be the hardest one to do. But let me tell you this, after you knock down talking to that first person, every other person becomes much, much easier. Because when you go to that first person, right? I'll tell a really quick example, but there's a local hair salon, hairstylist in our
Mhm.
around us, and I started doing what I needed to do for my training and getting out there. And so I went to that business, and there's the owner, there's a helper, and there was a client there. So there's three people in total there. But I did my thing. I introduced them. And at the time, my local high school track team was doing a fundraiser. So I was able to actually sort of, weave that into, being able to talk to them and, sort of just build a mission around it. So it made it easier to have a conversation. But one really unexpected thing is that they helped support me through it, right? They helped support, and they gave their own donations to me for the fundraiser. I don't even know these people, right? I don't know them at all, right? That was my first time meeting those three people. But let me tell you this, I was not expecting that. And those things can happen unexpectedly. You don't know what you're going to get unless you actually do it, right? I was definitely wasn't expecting to get, you know, support and donations from strangers I just met to help me support and to help support me in my track fundraiser. I definitely wasn't expecting that. But because of that, it creates momentum. That's the word there, momentum. Because once you get that momentum rolling and you realize, hey, it's not so bad, and once you get that first person knocked down, every other person becomes much easier to talk to. And my goal was 5 to 10 people a day. So once I get knocked down that first person, those next 4, those next 9 people, it becomes much easier because you build that momentum, and then your brain realizes, hey, there's nothing to be afraid of. You're okay here. And so
Wow, I love it.
that's where it all comes down to, right? But
I actually love that story, but you need to complete that story because I think it has a second part, right? Isn't that the same one that you send a note? Is that the same one?
yes, you're correct, Silvana, and I
Complete
appreciate
the
you.
story because it only gets better.
Yes, so it's not only that, right? But we give out thank you cards to, the people that we meet, right? And I do this as well with my podcast, sending out thank you cards to every guest that's been on my podcast, right? Because they're taking
And
the time
I
to do
can
it.
tell you that the feeling on the other side, because I received one of your beautiful cards and it was so thoughtful and really, really such a nice detail. Thank you, by the way.
Of course, Savannah. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Right? Yes. It's kind of just going above and beyond for people who won't really expect, their host to send them a thank you card. You know, especially someone who's 18 years old, they wouldn't expect, someone that young to actually prioritize, you know, what they shared and the presence that they brought on the podcast, right? So that's, the power when it comes to, relationship building, right? People will recognize, hey, he actually cares. He actually
Oh
cares,
yeah,
and he wants,
absolutely.
and he cares about what I did, and he cares about, what I shared through the podcast. He just appreciated having me on. You know, that's, a really powerful thing that you can do. And, especially I did it with people that I talked to through my rejection-proof journey. There was a lady, and, I did my thing. I introduced her. I took a picture with her as well, because that was one of my sort of exercises to do. And then, like, the next week or two or so, I wrote a thank you card and I went to her in person. I gave her the thank you card. I was like, hey, just a quick thank you card. I really appreciate you for helping me out. And she gave me a really, really big hug. And so you really get to
Was
see that light in
this
their eyes.
one that rejected you, though?
She didn't reject me. She didn't reject me, actually. And that's, the goal, the initial goal is
Uh-huh.
so that when they tell when they reject you, right, you actually win, right? It's sort of like a reverse psychology there. You win through actually getting told no rather than getting told a yes. But then over time, those no's, then the yes starts to become more frequent and more natural for
Mm.
people to say, because you went through the exercise, you went through that training, you built up that confidence, right? You are someone who matured more, you're more confident, and you're less likely to react, right? Because one of the biggest things is emotional control and staying in control of your own emotions and not reacting, because people can feel that. People can feel when you're nervous, when you're anxious, and when you are feeling emotional from if they say no. So over time, though, that sort of those results there, the yeses start to become more frequent, and that's
Mm.
when you know that even if even a no can still happen, right? I'm not saying that, but even if you get told a no, you are not gonna let that. You're not gonna let that bring you down. You're gonna just move on.
I love that because it's not rejecting you. It's perhaps it's saying not right now, not to you, not to your idea in that moment, to your idea how it was presented. But I agree with you. That no is no yet. Actually, I would say, and it can easily turn into a yes. So I love that. Sahil, I would love to ask you about your actual mission because you have a very, very powerful mission, which is helping 1,000 teenagers become millionaires with one powerful idea. Tell us that idea, please.
Of course, Silvana. So this mission is because this surrounds the fact that saving and investing, it's such a powerful tool in today's world, but it can be, 5 times, 10 times better if you start it early. And so I'm 18 years old right now. And because my family recognized that, time is such a valuable asset when you're young, right? They recognize that and they wanted to teach me that. And that's what I know today. They don't want me to, go 30, 40 years out, maybe when I'm, 50, 60, right? And then I'll have that regret that I didn't start early enough. And it's a regret that I've seen and heard a lot through my podcast. A lot of people I talk to with this mission is that I ask them for their thoughts, and they're like, you know what? This is a great mission. I wish I started this early. I wish I had done this early, right? And so that really should speak to a lot of people maybe who are young listening to this. This should really speak to a lot of their hearts is that there's a really, it's not just a financial aspect of it that hits you hard, but it's also an emotional hit on you because one, you could have one on the finance side, you could have a lot more money, but on the other side, you have regret, and regret is painful. And so that's why with this mission, to help those 1,000 teenagers start saving, investing with that one powerful idea so they can become millionaires, which is $100 a month. And you just do that every single month. And you can actually put this into a calculator. I use a calculator called MoneyChimp. Yeah, MoneyChimp, I think it is called. So if you can just put that in a calculator, $100 a month, see where you are. Maybe you start at 15 or 16 and you calculate it maybe when you're 60, right? 65. You'll have those over the course of those 50 years or so, you'll have that $1 million, right? You'll have over $1 million because, one, you're saving and investing at an early age. And number two, it's not just saving and investing, but actually being consistent and disciplined to doing it, right?
Mm.
That's where it comes from because of compound interest. But you need to
Oh,
make
I
sure
love
that
it.
you are staying disciplined to doing that. Because right now I'm 18 years old and I think I have roughly over $20,000, saved up right now. And of course it's still growing, today. And so it's not something that, I plan on stopping anytime soon, right? I need to, keep staying disciplined and saving and investing, but that's, a truly powerful mission. I'm glad that you brought that up, Silvana, because of course,
Absolutely. Just keep
I
in
hold a
mind
lot
that,
of importance to it.
yes, it's the power of compound interest can make a big difference. And what is a suggestion to invest it in a specific thing, or is it just what would be the recommendation?
So what I've been doing is I've been putting it into a Roth IRA account.
Mm,
And
mm.
so that's, what I've been doing. And my parents have, of course, made sure that, I'm doing it and, I'm making sure that I'm staying on top of it efficiently.
I love it. Absolutely. Very, very good. Oh my God, Sahil, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I am sure y- a lot of people will want to connect with you. What is the best way to get in touch with you?
Absolutely, Silvana. First of all, thank you so much. It was truly a pleasure to,
Mm.
have this conversation and share my journey. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. It's, all in my, my name, Saahil Baxi. You can find me anywhere there. You just got to type in, you know, the two hard first and last names there, but that's where you can find me. And if anyone who is listening to this, right, maybe you're a thought leader, maybe you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, or just a professional who really has a message that they want to get out there and to share for the young and next generation, I'd love to have you join me on Future Millionaires, and we can really, really have a valuable conversation and inspire the young generation.
I love that. And then maybe also you have kids, the people on the audience that would love to enter into this amazing program that you talk about, which is creating future millionaires with just power of compound interest, $100 a month. So just think about that idea because I think that can make a difference, and we all want the best for our kids. So that is a really good food for thought.
Absolutely, Silvana.
Well, it was a pleasure again, Sahil. Thank you for being with us today. And to everyone listening, remember joy, confidence, leadership, and success are things we build one intentional habit at a time. And it was a pleasure. If you think this episode can help somebody you know, please go ahead and share it with them and make a difference. If you want, just I encourage you to connect with Sahil and perhaps be a guest on his podcast as well. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. See you next time. Bye bye.